Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? Oh, I want to get my drink out of my little heater area here. I don't want hot Smirnoff. That wouldn't be good. That sounds actually pretty disgusting. All right, so we're going to get somewhat right into it. A friend of mine earlier today was like, I wanted to watch one of your shows, but like the whole first half hour was just rambling. And I'm like, yep, that's what I do. I go, some people kind of like that. I don't know why, but they do. I want to see if okay, I think I have my headphones ready too. So let's see if these are ready. Let me try playing my buddy here.
Objection, speculative.
Yes, my headphones are ready. Need to get my Smirnoff ready, and we will get going. Now, I want to let you know that between yesterday, and thank you, nice shirt everyone's saying with my Ron Paul 2008. Ron Paul is pleased. So, between yesterday, when I did part 1, there's probably going to be 3 parts to this. And today, I actually did listen to one other critique. Yesterday, I didn't listen to any, but today I just couldn't help it. I listened to Liberty Dad, D.L. Cummings. I didn't even listen to the whole thing. I think I got halfway through his, 15 to 20 minutes through his, because he does things quite succinctly. And he pretty much covered like a lot of what was in the beginning. Was like everything worthwhile in this show said in the beginning, because almost all the clips he pulled from were from the beginning. But he gave me some food for thought. And because that was my first listen, I missed some things that Liberty Dad picked up on because he obviously did a lot of research beforehand. He had those great clips from Dave Smith's debate with Andy Craig, and oh my God, I never heard that debate before. Andy Craig was so thoroughly dislikable in that debate. Just an arrogant, let's just put it that way. I'm going to try to keep the show monetized, but it probably won't happen because I think I'm going to drop a few F-bombs because I can't help it with these lives. But super chats matter. All super chats matter. And Pink Flame of Liberty, patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. If you're not a subscriber to this channel, please do so. My subscriber count's kind of flattened because I never ask people to subscribe. So please do like, dislike, do some kind of activity to boost the algorithm. All right. So what did I hear from Liberty Dad that I realized that I didn't do a good job of? Let's do that first, and then we're going to backtrack a little bit on something I told you that I needed. Oh, I'm sorry, Justin made me laugh. I know it's already on the screen, but I'm going to put it on the screen twice. I said, yes, the rest of that sentence was superfluous. It was redundant, wasn't it? Okay. So one thing Liberty Dad brought up that I realized I did a very poor job of was that whole, the Mises Caucus has this weird defense of Hitler on their website. And I dismissed it, but I didn't dismiss it as well as I could have. With screenshots and the like. Because again, this was the first time I listened to the show, so I didn't have things queued up. But I have some of those things right now. So we're going to pull them up. First, we want to pull up, if we can, I got to find it, the part they're saying was a low-key defense of Hitler. Okay, here it is. Let's pull this up on the screen. I'm sorry, it's going to cover the chat for a little while here. Where can I put it? Right there. And I'm going to sit up a little to get up above it. So, the context of this article is whether or not the U.S. should have gone to war against Hitler. That's the context of this article. So, the author is dealing with arguments that said we had to go to war with Hitler. And one of those arguments is that Hitler was seeking world domination and was picking wars with our allies such as Britain. So that is the context of this paragraph. So let's read the paragraph. Hitler never wanted war with Britain. That's a counter to that argument. He wanted absolute power in Germany. So again, that's the argument that Hitler's intentions were localized. He wanted to be a great German historical figure like Bismarck. Notice the key words there. That's what he wanted. Psychopaths often have very delusional wants and aspirations, don't they? And then it goes on. He wanted to overturn the injustice of the Versailles Treaty. There's some great audio books on how the Versailles Treaty led to the rise of Hitler. He wanted to restore German lands and people. He wanted to enlarge the German Empire to the east. He wanted to cleanse Germany of the Jews and other inferior races. Reading this out of context sounds like the author is agreeing that Jews and others are inferior races. But we're going to counter that because I think this guy, Jeremiah Johnson, irresponsibly only read this paragraph and then went on to slander people. He wanted to destroy Bolshevism. He wanted Germany to achieve economic self-sufficiency in Europe. Whether these things were right or wrong is immaterial. Now, this is what rubbed Jeremiah Johnson the wrong way. And in the context of this paragraph, in the context of the larger piece, it is correct that whether these things were right or wrong is immaterial to the argument of this. The guy is not claiming, who wrote the article, that in the larger scheme of morality, whether these things were right or wrong is immaterial. He's claiming it's immaterial to his argument. It says Hitler never wanted war with Britain, and certainly not with the United States. He never wanted a two-front war, let alone a world war. He wanted Germany to be a world power, not the ruler of the world. He wanted a friendly or neutral Britain, not a hostile or rival Britain. Okay, so that's the piece they cherry-picked out. But 2 paragraphs, I think it was, maybe 3, above it, there's another... Oh, crap. This, I'm going to have to try to listen to the show through the crappy computer speakers because I did not charge these properly. Let me turn these off. All right, let's put that down. We're going to continue with this. I think I've got another set of headphones, by the way. So, the other quote. That was a few paragraphs above this one. And I see comments, chat comments arguing with that paragraph. I don't care if you guys could talk about whatever you want in chat. Note that the subject isn't whether or not this author is correct. The subject is, was this author defending Hitler? No, that wasn't the point. And here is 3 paragraphs above. That Jeremiah Johnson, if he read it, he was being dishonest in what he said. And if he didn't read it, he was being reckless. Neither conclusion is flattering. So this is a few paragraphs above what we just read. Because the name of, right before this paragraph, it said, like Pearl Harbor, we need to rethink Hitler. Now, you know, there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying right or wrong, who think that we knew about the attack on Pearl Harbor and let it happen as an excuse to get into the war. Not getting into that. I'm just saying that that's the context leading up to this about the rethinking. It says, now there are many things about Hitler that don't need rethinking. The evils. So he is saying these things were objectively wrong. So later on when he said whether these things were right or wrong were immaterial, he means immaterial to his argument about what Hitler wanted. So it says the evils of Hitler and Nazism are beyond dispute. Those are some strong words. Fascism, militarism, racism, anti-Semitism, forced labor, death camps, gruesome medical experiments, murder, genocide, theft, book burning, lies, propaganda, brutal suppression of dissent, deliberate targeting of civilians, horrendous destruction of property, tremendous violations of civil rights, the invasions, conquest and occupation of other countries, etc., etc., etc. So, right before this alleged apologia for Hitler, he called Hitler beyond dispute evil. Oh, really sounds like he's defending Hitler, doesn't it? Jeremiah Johnson, you're a dishonest piece of crap in what you said. Thank you, Liberty Dad, for that. Okay, another thing that D.L. Cummings, Liberty Dad, brought up that I realized I missed in the first listening is when he was talking about there were statements against trans people, just basically saying that while the caucus may not have put out certain statements, there were these tweets or these posts. And I didn't realize that they said Dave Smith made them and made the claim that Dave Smith is anti-Semitic. Let me tell you something, dear sirs. I personally think one of the most anti-Semitic things you can do is accuse a Jewish person of being a white nationalist or anti-Semitic. So yes, I'm accusing the 3 of you of being anti-Semitic. How dare you say that about somebody who lost family members in the Holocaust? Go jump off a cliff. And I mean that metaphorically, because I know how these people are going to go, oh my God, she wants to throw us off a cliff. Ugh. So, thank you, Liberty Dad, for pointing those things out in your video that I realized I missed in mine. Now I'm going to point out something in mine that, at least so far in yours, you went down a different point, which was very interesting. Liberty Dad pointed out in response to their claim that the people, the Mises Caucus delegates, were just there to follow orders. And he brought up a part of the strategic plan that gave the rationale for why they should vote this way. If they were just a bunch of lemmings that were just there to follow orders, why did we have hours and hours of training as to why certain votes were justified? I mean, if they were just to follow orders, all there should have been is like 3 pages of instructions. Vote yes, vote no, vote yes, vote no, rather than extensive rationales, including parliamentary opinions. So that was something D.L. Cummings pointed out on his show. But what I wanted to point out was about, I told you I was going to get the strategic document to refute a claim about we condemn bigotry as irrational and repugnant. So that's where we're going to start off now. So let's go. I'm going to be playing the clip where they make this claim, and then I'm going to show you the documents I promised.
But they went out of their way to delete from the party platform a line that has been there basically since the start, almost 50 years since the party was started in the early 70s, that says, "We condemn bigotry as irrational and repugnant," which would seem to be a pretty uncontroversial statement to most people, you would think.
That was their one of their number one. It was basically their number one goal for the platform, was to delete that sentence.
Okay, we're going to stop there. There were 2 claims made there. One I've refuted on another show, but I want to refute it again here, where Andy Craig is claiming that this has been in the platform since the beginning. Andy knows better. Andy likes history as much as I do. He often misrepresents it, but he's not ignorant of it. Andy and I have gotten into, one of my first debates with Andy, I might even still have the document, was over the Dallas Accord. I don't even know where I would have saved it. I should have looked for this ahead of time. If I can find it quickly, I'll do so. I think it might be under... What would it be under? Shows... me? 1 second. Libertarian presentations. No, let's go see if it's in my historical drive. I'll only look for 1 second about this. Maybe it's under miscellaneous. No. One other place to look. Otherwise, we'll just move on. Committees. Maybe it's there. LPHPC. Maybe miscellaneous there. Nope. Just give me 1 second. Nah, I can't find it. Let me do a search in my Google Drive for Craig and see if I can find that document then. I discover, what's this? I think I found it. Hold on. God, I hate Grammarly. It keeps popping up and it won't go away. Nope, that's not it. Craig Bowden, no. That's an application for Mr. AndyCraig.png. Is that it? No. No, that is just records from Elpedia because he is a contributor at Elpedia. So no, I can't find it. It was something he wrote about the Dallas Accord, just to show that he's very interested in history. It doesn't deal with anything else other than that. So let's go, and I want to show you that this hasn't been in the platform since the beginning. Let's go back to what I was doing. Okay. I'm going to pull up here my screen. Come on now. So let me share my screen. Why is it showing that? Okay, you all should see Elpedia now. Let me turn off me and the chat. Sorry. Sometimes this. Turn off the widget. And now it's showing my accounts again. I might not be able to show this easily. Okay. All right, we're going to search for the national platform here on Elpedia. I know I'm still in the way a little bit. You can go and do the search yourself on the national thing. All right, so if we go to the 1978 platform and we do a search for repugnant, R-E-P-U-G, we will see that it's in there in the 1978 platform. We condemn bigotry as irrational and repugnant. And I'll just let you know it came into play in, I believe, the 1974 platform. It wasn't in the 1972 platform. So you had it in 74, 76, and 78. Was it in the 1980 platform? Repugnant. It's not. Well, repug's not. Let's look up bigotry. Nope. Big only appears in ambiguities. So it was out of the platform as of 1980. Huh. Interesting. Let's just do some random sampling. Let's look at the 1992 platform. Repug. Nope, it's not in there. Let's look at the 2002 platform. Repug. It's, oops, I misspelled that. R-E-P-U-G. It's not in there. Interesting. I'll let you know. Here's where it appeared again in 2008, after the Portland massacre. There it is. Okay, so let's go back to that list of platforms, shall we? So it was here. It was in 74, 76, and 78. It was not in 1980, 1982, 1984, 1986, 1988, 1990, 92, 1994, 1996, 1998, 2000, 2002, 2004, 2006. It reappeared 2008, 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016, 2018, and there were no changes made in 2020. Does that seem like it was in there the entire time for 50 years, Mr. Craig? I know you know better. Henchman might not know better, but I know you know better. So let's now go back to here. I don't know what I just did. Well, anyway, let's pull the chat back up. All right. So the second claim that was made was that this was the Mises Caucus's #1 goal. Is that true? Okay, here we go. This is talking about the platform. And remember, they dealt with 3.5 through the token system. I heard some of those debates, though I tried to skedaddle out of there as quickly as possible because as platform committee chair and I wanted to maintain my neutrality. But here was their #1 goal, if you're going to let them speak for themselves, right here. The token system. This is from the Mises Caucus Master Plan. Give tokens to platform plank 1.5 abortion. They did not have any recommendation to give tokens to plank 3.5. They did have plans later on to suspend the rules and delete that sentence, though. But that wasn't their number one goal. Their number one goal was to get rid of the abortion plank. Okay, so here's where they talked about 3.5. Remember, it ended up coming up during platform plank deletions. I thought the Mises Caucus was a bunch of lemmings that followed orders. How come so many of them put their planks to put their tokens to 3.5 against orders? But here's where they talked about wanting to delete that sentence. And remember, well, actually, we're going to get back to that one. It wasn't the number one goal. We proved that. Okay, let's go back to that clip. I kind of lost it a little bit here when I did all the switching around.
But they went out of their way.
We're going to go back to number 29. That's where we left off. Let's start with 25.
Number one, it was basically their number one goal for the platform was to delete that sentence. Which is telling.
It's telling because it's a messaging thing. Like that is not actually advocating a policy. It's just stating a value. So if you go after it, you're telling people.
Okay, right. It's the only thing that states, well, I mean, I think policies do reflect values, but it's the only thing that basically condemned a thought. Yes.
You are. And there is this explanatory, they sent out an issue, their orders, their script to all their followers that everybody that was leaked and obtained. And there's an explanation of why they're doing that. And it's basically, we need to delete this to send a signal, except they didn't use signal because anything they don't like, they say is virtue signaling, but this is, I guess, vice signaling. We need to send a message that this party welcomes people who would be offended by this statement, who would be put off by this statement. And I mean, I don't know how much clearer you can put that, because the only person who doesn't think bigotry should be opposed are bigots.
Okay. That's quite a claim you made there. Let's look at what their actual reasoning was. Because he did accurately state it, he just misinterpreted on purpose. Okay, so here's the explanation. Why? Okay, here it is. One of the major goals of the Mises Caucus is to make the LP appealing to the wider liberty movement. So unless he's saying the wider liberty movement is a bunch of bigots, it doesn't say to the wider conservative, alt-right, no, liberty movement. Mr. Henchman, are you claiming that the wider liberty movement is a bunch of bigots? That is largely not currently here with us. That's indisputable. The wider liberty movement hates the Libertarian Party, and we need to change that. It said that movement strongly rejects wokeism. It isn't that they embrace bigotry. It's that word's been weaponized, and the word games associated with it. Mr. Henchman, you are a lawyer. You knew you were misrepresenting here. The deleting it to be appealing wasn't because there were certain people who loved bigotry, actual bigotry, and that kept them out of the party. It was that they knew that the word bigotry means everybody I don't agree with, and word games were associated with it, and that is what they opposed. Instead, we put into the platform the actual definition of actual bigotry and how you oppose it by standing up for the rights of all people at all time. It's so funny that you'd rather have this ushy-gushy, weaponized, we don't like the way you think, thought police statement, rather than one that's an actual policy. I find that interesting, Mr. Henchman. So, that was what I promised you for today. Now we're going to go to the rest of this show. So I need to pull up where we left off. Give me one sec. And we'll probably do about another 20 minutes of it, which will probably take me an hour and a half. It's probably going to be 3 shows dealing with refuting this show. And Subversive asks if I've seen the video of a young-based teenager, JBH. No, I haven't. I would love to see it, though.
There's one thing that you mentioned earlier. I think it was you, Joseph. It's a phenomenon I've noticed. And that is state libertarian parties, especially on Twitter, I honestly have this game.
We are backing up a little bit
I'm going to
here.
talk about how much I make fun of libertarians on Twitter. Forgive me for this sin, but state libertarian parties on Twitter put out some of the most insane shit that I've ever seen, and it's like this recurring joke we have almost.
Well, you're saying some of the most insane shit I ever heard, so I guess we are even here, dude.
It's like the state libertarians are at it again. And you talked about some of the structural reason why that might be, but can you elaborate on, number one, do you think it's true that state libertarian parties tend towards insanity? And number two...
I mean, speaking of state libertarian parties, Joe Bishop Henchman used to be the chair of the D.C. Libertarian Party. The former chair of the D.C. Libertarian Party, or someone who was formerly in charge of the D.C. Libertarian Party, was still tweeting under their official name after they no longer had permission to do so. So it wasn't the current DC party, but it was someone tweeting unauthorized. And you want to talk about insane stuff, they're really ass mad about me, claiming that I was insane. Let's just pretend I'm insane. And they said, lock her up. So are they advocating for the involuntary incarceration of mentally ill people? I think that's pretty grotesque, Mr. Bishop Henchman.
Is there a reason for that? Like, what's the detail there?
Well, your comment there, it's an important one that I think any libertarians listening to should understand, because I think what you're describing are those affiliates that had been taken over by this group before now. So
the venom dripping from his voice. This group. You mean those people? Those people, Mr. Bishop Henchman? You people? Is that what you were trying to say? And by takeover, you mean won legitimately elections following the rules. Okay.
They set out to conquer the party, and they started with state parties. And it took them about a year to conquer about half of them, and then they've done maybe 10 or 15 more since.
So it seems, though, if they were able to conquer half of them in a year, and it was a lot longer than that, and you know that, that it seems like a lot of libertarians must have been on board. Are you saying that you had a small social club before, Mr. Henchman, that was able to be so easily toppled?
So that's when you started seeing some of these state parties, New Hampshire, Connecticut, etc., posting some of this stuff on Twitter that's not really designed to do anything other than make other libertarians upset. It's certainly not helping people get elected.
It's not designed to do anything but make other libertarians upset. Like I said at Porkfest. Oh my God, I should do I have that clip? I think I need, if I have that clip, I need to play it. Why does this Google thing keep coming up? Hold on one second. If I have this clip, I have to play it. Is this my channel here? It would not be under live. It would be under uploads. I might not have it. I don't think I do. Let me, I need to make this a sound clip. Oh, here it is. Okay. I hope this is the right one, but if it's the right one, this will be great. Okay. Let me share my screen. I hope we remember where we were at. I'm trying to share my screen here. Okay, this should be the clip.
But you dared to say something libertarian, and the libertarians were offended.
That's my absolute favorite clip from Porkfest. Thank you, Daniel 3. Let me see if I could imitate myself. You dared to say something libertarian, and the libertarians were offended. Oh my God. Okay, we got to go back to there, and I don't remember where we were at. We were about here, right?
Who moved there? I forget the name of the.
And to make a long story short, it went to the next of it. It was almost exactly.
Oh my God, we didn't get very far.
Parties do or say is that, well, that's the state party, and as long as the national party isn't saying that stuff, people will understand the difference. I don't think.
Okay, well, we're going to stop there. So no. While it did offend some libertarians who made them realize that perhaps they weren't libertarian, because I'm sorry, if you don't know that the party's historic position has been to end child labor laws, maybe you're not in the right party. Or maybe you just disagree with that statement. That's okay. You can disagree with the LP. Just be honest that that's been our historic position. Because that's the context, at least of some of these. I'm not, we'll see if he gets specifically into certain tweets. That was the context of my, you dared to say a libertarian thing and the libertarians were offended comment. But it's funny that he's just upset that libertarians were offended, not normies. And of course, everything to Joe Bishop, it's not helping win on elections. Do you think taking over state parties is, Joe? Do you think being the chair of the party that destroyed property on the way out while claiming to be a member of the bar is winning elections, Joe?
Do understand the difference. I think people see libertarian with a blue check mark next to it and they assume that's an official statement, and so some of the stuff that was getting posted, that how black people actually owe America, being posted on MLK Day, or how it'd be better if trans people were killed if that meant we'd have no taxes. This stuff is very.
I'm going to stop right here. I'm not going to agree with every single thing a state party tweets. And as I've often said, okay, you can pull out a really bad tweet from almost any state party. But yeah, I thought that sentence in that tweet about black people owing America was not good, to put it mildly. That was bad. Without doubt. I didn't see the one he was talking about with trans people, so I can't make a comment on it. But the funny thing is he doesn't mention the rest of that tweet on Martin Luther King Day, which it was objectively true. That we do have racial preferential treatment in this country, and it causes resentment. Whether or not you think it's justified, it's a reality that it causes resentment. And the funny thing is, the people most discriminated against aren't your typical just white Americans, it's Asian Americans.
To the overall brand, but now it's, I guess, a moot point because we're going to see it come from the national party too.
And I'll say on that note that was kind of the flashpoint that drove us out of it. It was almost exactly a year ago. It was June of last year, where this takeover happened to the New Hampshire party.
Wait, is he saying? When was, Justin, when was the election in New Hampshire? Okay, Justin is saying the trans thing is from a personal tweet of Jeremy Kauffman. I don't care about Jeremy Kauffman's personal tweets. He made it sound like it came from the state party. So, all right, that explains why I didn't see it. When was the convention for LPNH? Wasn't it in March? Because Andy just said the quote-unquote takeover happened in June. No, that's when JBH tried to take over the New Hampshire party. But they were already in office, and I thought they were elected in March.
And there was a woman there who was the chair of the state party who wasn't on board with all this. They had basically the whole state party committee except this one woman who was still the chair. She understandably, it was in a feeling of desperation, and so she tried to pull, we're going to have a split, we're going to have a schism, basically, and to make a long story short, it went to the National Party.
Oh, you really did make a long story short, didn't you, Andy? Didn't he, Andy? Oh, my God. To make a long story short, Gilletta was desperate, yada, yada, yada. It went to the National Party. That's basically what he did. Yada, yada, yada. Oh, no, you don't. So, Gilletta was unhappy. Gilletta was getting ready to resign. And Justin has his own perspective on it there in chat. I can't vouch for that, so I'm just going to stick with what I know. She was getting ready to resign when she got contacted by somebody that a lot of people think might be Andy Craig. We don't know this for sure. There certainly is evidence pointing that way, but we don't know. Who said, don't resign. There's another way. And this person brokered an arrangement between Gilletta and JBH to write a letter that would allow her to seize control of the LPNH and claim that the rest of the board constructively resigned because they did not agree with him. With her, excuse me. So, yeah, Andy, to make a long story short, the person who's sitting there with you or on the phone with you, JBH, engineered an illegal coup of the state party, conspiring with Gilletta Jarvis with the intermediary of an unnamed co-conspirator who a lot of people think is you.
And the National Party Committee made the wrong call, basically sided with the group that was posting all that insane, bigoted crap. And it was Joe put it squarely before them. Are we going to kick the New Hampshire State Party out for this stuff?
No, he actually didn't. He put forward a motion to disaffiliate New Hampshire after at first arguing that no, all of those other board members constructively resign, but never really gave any justification for it. It was only after the fact, like he kind of provided justification for why Gilletta felt they constructively resigned. He certainly is compressing things, isn't he? I've got all kinds of videos on this channel. If you're interested in New Hampshire, I probably did 20 to 30 hours on this as things were happening. But Andy Craig is not properly representing things here.
I should say New Hampshire has kind of a special role in the Libertarian Party because it's the center of the live free or die. There's a bunch of people who moved there. I forget the name of the initiative, but there was an initiative to actually
Free State Project?
Yeah, the Free State Project. A bunch of people moved to New Hampshire and said, we're going to change politics there. So it's got a special role. It's not the biggest state, but it seems like
Okay, while I agree in the wider liberty movement, New Hampshire has a special role, not in the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party has been at odds, unfortunately, with the Free State Project. If you were reading the LNC list, you'll see that I sent an email earlier today saying that I couldn't even say how pleased I was to see the National Libertarian Party retweeting out PorkFest and Free State Project support, and that it's about time that we got on board with that. But at the time they're talking about here, June of last year, no, the LP was hostile to the Free State Project and hostile to New Hampshire. They didn't have some kind of special place.
a symbolically important one.
It is, and that's definitely the case. And one of the the example Joe mentioned of it would be fine to murder trans people if we got lower taxes for it, and that would be good. That's a guy by the name of Jeremy Kaufman. He's actually on the Free State Project's board.
And we all know Jeremy Kaufman tries to push buttons. Jeremy knows I'm not a fan of his personal tweets, which is why I don't read them. But I've met Jeremy. I've met him in person. And you learn a lot about a person when you meet them. And a lot of people are a lot different behind the keyboard, and I would say he's one of them. He likes to push buttons. But I don't follow his personal Twitter. And I know you're really big into digging into people's personal lives and judging people by, tweets, but that might not be the best possible way to do that. But it isn't the official Twitter account. So I get it that you don't like Jeremy and you don't like some of his tweets. I like Jeremy as a person. I don't like a lot of his tweets.
Is the New Hampshire party's candidate for U.S. Senate now, and he's the one who is mostly running their Twitter account and posting insane things. So when it was put before the National Committee, are we going to kick this stuff out? And they said no. There were only a few people that voted yes. And
okay, stop. And also some facts he's not given. At the time of all of this going down, the New Hampshire party removed Jeremy Kaufman from their Twitter. He's not even saying this. They did reinstate him later. I forgot how much later. It might have been August even. It was July or August. But in June, during this whole period of time, they removed him as on the communications team. Funny that Andy Craig's not mentioning that.
They all resigned in protest when it failed, and then Joe also resigned in protest, and that's when I left, and that's when...
Okay, stop. No, they didn't. Francis resigned because he went against the will of his region and was about to be removed. Same thing with Tucker Coburn. They didn't resign in protest. They were about to get removed by their regions for failing to live up to their obligations as regional representatives. Tell the truth, Andy.
A lot of people left. I mean, so leading up to this national...
Wait, a lot of people left? 3 people left. Tucker first, because he was about to get removed. And yes, Justin is correct. I mean, he literally was about to get removed. Francis, we didn't have a ballot, but he was about to get removed. Colorado was going to be making that motion, most likely. If not Colorado, one of the other states. Francis openly defied his region. But Tucker was much more obvious so. And Francis was very emotional in his dislike of me, and that had a lot to do with it. Tucker, he was really, literally about to get removed. Francis didn't like that I exposed all of this, and that was a more complicated situation, but not quite as certain as Tucker's removal, but his removal was fairly certain. But to be fair, it wasn't as certain as Tucker's. That's 2. And then JBH resigned because I confronted him on lies that he made, at which point he threatened to sue me. He threatened to sue both me and Joshua Smith. That's left out. After he threatened to sue me because he knew I was uncovering and I was getting very, very close to who his co-conspirator was. I wonder if it's the guest that's on the show with him. I don't know that. All the pieces fit. Do you want to know my personal opinion that I can't prove? My personal opinion is that his co-conspirator was Andy Craig. I can't prove it, though. Can't prove it at all. This show certainly isn't disabusing me of that notion. Andy certainly knew about it. Those two are like best friends. So then JBH, once he knew that Joshua and I were closing in, he then resigned. So 3. 3 out of 17 isn't a lot. In the middle of a really big scandal, no, that's not a lot. A lot would be half. Close to half.
this year.
I mean, 2 people resigned over the fact that teller tables were behind Justin Amash at convention. Like, a couple people getting really pissy and resigning is not actually all that unusual in the LP. With the Arvin Vohra thing, didn't 2 people resign, or was it just Larry Sharp? I thought it was 2 people, but it might have just been 1. But libertarians getting upset and resigning is not unusual, particularly when you're talking about 2 or 3. You start talking about half the LNC, yeah, that might be a lot.
For the past year, a lot of the people that were getting out have already done so.
Justin brings up a good point. He says he wouldn't have had email communication with Andy. Did they live together in June? But I don't think the email communication was with Andy per se. I think the email communication was with Gilletta, saying that Andy hooked up this whole thing. But I could be incorrect. It could be a different co-conspirator. Andy certainly knew about it. Whether or not he's the puppet master that Gilletta referred to, I don't know that. But he certainly fits the 2 things that she was willing to say. The person had since disavowed the Libertarian Party and did not live in New Hampshire. And obviously, it would have to be somebody who was very close to JBH. She didn't give that qualification, but that's obvious from the circumstance.
Because it was kind of, the writing was on the wall. Even if they weren't going to take over National, the fact that the National Party was going to tolerate and accept this stuff and allow it to be said under their name and under their brand.
Wait, so is he saying that the past LNC was Mises friendly? Is that the claim he's making? That, they tolerated New Hampshire, therefore they're Mises friendly, so they paved the way for the takeover by their friendliness? I hate to tell you this, Andy, but no. The last LNC may have had a lot of positions that they took, but being Mises friendly was definitely not one of them.
Was kind of the last straw for a lot of us.
Yeah, so over the past year since that happened, paid membership, the kind that you described at the beginning of sending the $25 in, that's fallen from 21,000 to I think it's under 17 now, kind of in a free fall. Donations have...
Oh boy. What else happened during that time? Our messaging continued to stink, and you tried to remove a popular secretary and eventually succeeded. It's funny. I mean, I don't know why membership fell. I know a lot of people left over my removal, though, but you're claiming they left over Mises. So now all the new memberships we're getting, are you going to credit those to Mises? And plus, I want to look at this. Because I don't even know if his numbers are correct. I'm assuming they are. Because I was fighting for my life during that period of time. And to be honest with you, hadn't paid that much attention to those numbers. So we're going to look them up. I'm on Lpedia right now, National Party. Yeah, and Janelle, yeah, and they acted completely corrupt. Like, that had nothing to do with it. Your corruption, JBH, had nothing to do with National Party membership declining. Okay, we believe that. Okay, so let's look here. 2021. So I want to look at BSM memberships in June. Was 18,500. So he's saying it fell from 21,000. I didn't think we ever got up to 21,000. So in June, right before all of this happened, no, because June we would have gotten in July. Let's look at May. Okay, so in May, which would have been released June 1st, we had 19,500. Excuse me, or is it 19,300? Gotta look at my glasses. But remember, our national convention is in May, and a lot of people, their memberships lapse around May because they don't see a reason to keep up their memberships until it comes time to qualify to be a delegate again. But I can't see that number. Okay, 19,350. We're going to say 19,400 in May. And then it was 18,500 in June. So it never was at 21,000. Let's go back to March, but that would be under his watch now. Okay, it was already dropping. March, 19,800. Then, did we look at April? April stayed the same. And then it dropped for May, still under JBH's watch. It dropped by 500. And then by June was 18,500. July, 17,500. I think this was more having to do with your corruption, dude. And then it's, okay, some of these reports are really weird. Let's look at August. These are not uploaded as the right dates, because August was still July. I think we're missing July and August. I mean, we're missing August. August, 16,000. So we certainly are seeing a decline. But remember what was going on during that period of time as well was your attempted removals of me. September stayed flat, but never was at 21,000. I don't know where he got that from. And then October, it actually went up a little bit. Then it went down a little bit. Seems like it's hovering between 17,000 and 18,000. November, it stayed the same. December, it stayed the same. So I don't know what he's talking about. January went down by about 500. Stayed the same for February. Stayed the same for March. Stayed the same for April, like really within about a couple hundred. And same thing for May. So January for 2022, it's been completely stable. And this is after all of the Mises takeovers. So it went from a high of 19,500-ish. It dropped 1,000 under his reign to 18,500. And right now we're about 16,700 last figures. So a swing of a couple thousand, which actually is not unusual. But it didn't go from 21,000. Now maybe in 2020 it was 21,000, but that would have been all under his watch. Let's look at September 2020 just to take a peek. It looks like it was dropping under his reign. September 2020 was over 20,000. That wasn't anything to do with New Hampshire. That was before the new board was elected. We don't have December 2020. That's weird. We're missing a lot of these reports. So it went down all under the biggest jumps under his reign, it looks like. But it never got up to 21,000 as far as I can see. But it was 20,000 in 2020. And it went down to 18,500 under his watch. And then it went down about another 2,000 the year after that. So it seems like there's been a decline that has been pretty constant starting with his reign. So I don't really know what conclusions we can draw from that. Certainly can't categorically say what he said. You could just as categorically say that the drop was caused by my removal if you want to. Unless you're going to interview these people, we really don't know. And it's not as if the economy's been great either. Could that possibly be it? I know when I was doing membership renewal calls in Colorado, a lot of people just told me they couldn't afford it. that even $25 a year, a $25 at one time was a big deal to them when they were choosing between whether they could pay their rent and food and whether or not they would support a party that wasn't even defending them against their jobs being lost through cutbacks, lockdowns. And Justin points out JBH got fired the membership director. They did stop focusing on a membership model and focused on big donors. That's an absolute fact. So yeah, there's a lot being left out here. These gentlemen, and I use that term loosely, are not being exactly forthright.
Fallen 7 months straight, much more from like the kind of pledge donations. That's only off 10 or 20%, but major gifts is down by, I think it's like 80%. And there's just been a lot.
Yeah, I didn't look at the dollar amounts. I looked at membership
numbers. In order
numbers.
to get elected chair, obviously, I had to have a big network of libertarians, about 1,000 people who worked on my campaign and helped me be chair and helped run the party and everything. And at this point, like almost all of those people have now left.
Wait, so 1,000 people you claim are unhappy with your resignation, though we didn't hear from them, yet we got over 1,000 emails unhappy about the persecution of me. Why do your 1,000 people matter and mine don't, Mr. Henchman?
In a very quick time frame. Many of those that were still there are now in the process of leaving after this national convention result.
I've got to say, I'm very sympathetic to this, and one of my nightmares as one of the people who helps run the Neoliberal project is that, we're going to give somebody a state chapter, and we don't have a chapter in this state, and they seem great, and they can found it.
Matt, I'm taking his word for it. You asked if his 1,000 people are real. 1,000 people didn't work on his campaign. That's insane. 1,000 people did not work on his campaign. He had a lot of people working on his campaign. It wasn't 1,000. I'd be really surprised if it was 500. Did he have several hundred people? Yeah, I think he easily had that. Yeah, easily. He might have even had 500. Because if you go for your state whips, you got 50 states. Yeah, he probably had 4 or 5 people in each state. Well, that would be, I'm not good at math. He at least had a couple people in each state. Yeah, maybe he did have 1,000. Didn't seem like that, but 50 with a couple people would be 100. I don't think he had that much. But anyway, I'm taking his word for it that he had 1,000 people working on his campaign. I had 1,000 people bothered to write the LNC yelling at them over what they were doing to me.
And then they start posting horrible things and bigoted things. Now, luckily, the structure of our organization is such that we can just kick them out anytime we want.
He's bragging that they're authoritarian. What about, though, when people decide, dude, that you're just not appropriate and they kick you out? Justin, you can't take over their chapter. They said they're just going to throw you out.
It certainly would be a fiasco for us if something like that ever happened, and it just I can't imagine watching something that you built be taken over in that way. It just seems
he didn't build. He didn't build that. You didn't build that. Oh, something you built getting taken over, and how heartbreaking that is. Yeah, the way the wokists took over the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party was not built on identity politics. So I'm glad that you sympathize with the Mises Caucus, Jeremiah. You're coming around rapidly.
Horrifying.
And it's kind of deeply ironic for us, too, sadly, in that libertarians have been aware of takeover potential for a long time. The New York Party at one point was taken over by Howard Stern supporters in order to promote his campaign. We saw the Reform Party get taken over by Patrick Buchanan and his supporters. So, the vulnerability was understood, and there.
You mean actual libertarians coming and winning seats as a takeover because you just don't happen to like them? I don't think the comparisons are quite the same.
Features of the Libertarian Party structure that were designed to prevent takeovers, but the problem is a human one, where when push comes to shove and you actually have to have people vote to kick affiliates out or kick people out or punish.
Boy, he's a big fan of purging, isn't he? No, when there's actual bad actors, there's no problem getting those kinds of votes. If for some reason I had to vote regarding the phony Massachusetts affiliate, do you think I would have hesitated for a second to vote to disaffiliate them? No, I wouldn't have. The problem is I just don't agree with you, so you're assuming then there's a problem with getting the votes. Even Whitney, who didn't like the Mises Caucus, said, I see no reason to disaffiliate New Hampshire, but I can't bring myself to vote no.
People for doing horrible things, and if you require 2/3 or 3/4 or due process, I mean, it really turned in, and I said this in my resignation letter, it turned into almost like
Wait, what did he say? I was reading the chat, because JJ, I'm amazed how some people think they own an organization. I know. Wait, I heard due process in there. That had to be a reference to me. Let me see.
Sure, that were designed to prevent takeovers, but the problem is a human one, where when push comes to shove and you actually have to have people vote to kick affiliates out or kick people out or punish people for doing horrible things, and if you require 2/3 or 3/4 or due process, I mean.
He's complaining that we require due process. Bad. Oh my God, that's such a flaw. Oh noes, due process. We can't have that. He said the quiet part out loud. You're not supposed to do that, Mr. Henchman. Tisk, tisk. Due process is such an inconvenience.
It really turned in, and I said this in my resignation letter, it turned into almost like a public employee union process where people didn't want to do anything unless we had this long, drawn-out process designed not to really achieve anything.
I bet you a lot of prosecutors think that too about alleged criminals, that damn due process.
It's kind of it was sitting through a zoning approval committee or something like that. And
I just want to say that's the right analogy for this podcast. If you want to get people, on your side.
Well, I go to my local civic association to make sure that my hand is in the air for every project getting approved, and sometimes I'm the deciding vote, which I find that to be very alarming. You can have all the structure you want, but when, as Andy said, I put the New Hampshire issue before the national board.
After you tried to take it over.
One person was recalled by their states to prevent them from voting for it. Another person voted for it.
No, he resigned before he could be removed. And I don't know how long that ballot was, but I think the LNC ballot ended before, but we shall see.
Before they were recalled, and then they were immediately recalled by their states, and then I voted for it. So that's 3 out of 17, and the rest found ways to not vote to condemn what New Hampshire was doing to actually draw a line. And so that just showed kind of the National Committee wasn't going to do anything about this. And
so
are you condemning your friend Richard Longstreth for not voting to disaffiliate New Hampshire? Are you condemning all of those people on the LNC? Interesting.
talk about this in a little more detail, because I think it's worth exploring some of the history of the libertarian movement here. I think, it's obviously a little uncomfortable to talk about because I don't think you guys are racist or bigoted. I think that there's a lot, actually, of principled libertarians out there who are going to be aghast at what has happened.
Oh, I'm aghast, but at what you guys are saying. And you actually think you're righteous. One day, every man will be called to account for his words.
But the libertarian movement as a whole, it seems to me like it's always been vulnerable, not just to takeover, but specifically to racism and white
Unauthorized
nationalism.
recording.
And you can kind of go back to a few different things. You can go back to, thinkers like Rothbard, who flirted with white supremacy, and Hoppe, who was an open and enthusiastic white supremacist. You can go back to like Ron Paul and his newsletters and all of the controversy around that. Why do you think that this...
Okay, I'm not even going to argue with those points because it's irrelevant. Let's pretend he has a point on every single thing there. Let's just pretend. Shut your ears, Ron. Let's just pretend he has a point. You mean freedom means that people are going to have opinions that you don't like? And that libertarianism holds that if you don't use the force of the state, you have to respond through free market means?
Been such a long-standing feature of kind of the libertarian movement or the liberty movement, that this is something that has always been lurking in the background.
You hit on a lot of the history there in that question. I mean, for those who...
If that's the history, Andy Craig, why did you join such a bigoted organization?
Who aren't familiar, basically, if you go back to the late 80s, early 90s, there was this strain of paleo-libertarianism.
I swear he is obsessed with something that doesn't exist anymore.
Was very much kind of in the lead of it, who was a influential libertarian theorist and movement figure and had been for a long time before this. And he wrote, anybody looking to understand it, kind of the text I would point to is Right-Wing Populism, a Strategy for the Paleo Movement. And this is an essay.
I know, I'm just a poster child for paleo-libertarianism, aren't I? I was an endorsed officer candidate.
The Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan had run for governor of Louisiana in 1991, and got a lot of attention and stuff. He made the runoff. And Rothbard starts this piece lamenting that Duke had lost. And it goes downhill from there. And,
yeah, I'm not, Matt, I'm just going to let him talk. I don't care about any of this.
I want to steelman this. On their own terms, the argument for it is that, look, if we ally ourselves with these kind of far-right...
I want to get past this. This is ridiculous. This has nothing to do with today.
Mises Institute in Alabama.
My God, he likes to hear himself talk.
And there wasn't the repudiation that needed to be. There wasn't the slamming doors and burning bridges that it required. And it's
he's still just going
without being.
Oh my God! Does he shut up?
Being cut out and separated, and because we didn't do that, the next few years you're going to see some really nasty stuff going out under the word libertarian.
Okay, because you didn't get to throw people out, you're going to see a bunch of nasty stuff. Okay.
People who favor individual rights and economic sanity, they're generally 10, 15, 20, 25% of the vote and are represented in their parliaments and sometimes members of government.
Yep, Daniel, he is arguing for purges.
We don't have...
You need to destroy the Libertarian Party to save the Libertarian Party. Don't you understand anything, Daniel?
In America. And I've always kind of asked myself why we don't, especially since we have a much richer tradition of our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence that I at least view as fundamentally libertarian documents. And I think a lot of it comes to the electoral system, which is something that Andy works on in his day job, where we're not a parliamentary system. We're a winner-take-all system that sorts everybody into two parties and makes it very hard for third parties to succeed, even before you bring in all of the barriers and obstacles like restrictive ballot access laws and such.
But wait. Don't you understand, JBH? They're doing that for the good of the country, because you can't let libertarians get in charge, because then XXX yada yada yada. They're just pre-purging us. You should be all on board with that. They're just protecting their investment. You should be really on board with that, JBH. Does the expression gooses and ganders mean anything to you, kind sir?
Stand in the way.
Well, don't you know, Doc Sexy, due process is now illiberal.
And, I'd be remiss not to mention our libertarian movement's history of fusionism with the Republican Party as part of a broad anti-communist coalition, anti-New Deal coalition, dating...
So wait, are you... Okay, let's just take what he said for the sake of argument, even though Ayn Rand, one of the reasons she really, really disliked the early Libertarian Party is they were not stridently anti-communist enough. However, he seems to be conceding the point that the genesis of the Libertarian Party and the early party, it was considered a right-wing movement, and that most of the early founders, not all of them, came from the right. So why now are you bemoaning that we've somehow departed from our tradition if you're claiming that we're right-wing now, if you're also claiming that we were founded right-wing? You make no sense. What it sounds like you're saying is that the party was founded a certain way, the progressives took it over, the people in the spirit of the founding took it back, and you guys who were the usurpers are now upset. Now, I'm not saying I agree with any of that. I'm just using your own argument.
From the 1930s up through the 1990s. And so a lot of people that I think in another country would be part of a liberal or libertarian party or part of the conservative coalition. And that's obviously started fraying after the end of the Cold War and is now very much frayed as a result of Trump, or the Republicans.
Okay, he's talking about a libertarian movement way before the LP, and he's talking about it in other countries, but claiming they be part of a conservative coalition. But the word libertarian in Europe means anarcho-communist. It does not mean right-wing. It means very extreme left-wing. I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Even really know what they stand for. And I think you see a lot of people looking for answers and where to go with this stuff. So, I think a lot of these people who support this group and a lot of people who support other populists in the Democratic and Republican parties, it's not that they are really...
Wait, stop, Justin. I did not know that. When was that? I absolutely believe you, because he told me the same thing. He didn't use that analogy. But now I know with him saying that to you and Aaron, that you believe me when I say that he said that to me on the phone. He's denied it and called me a liar. Because I called him and I told him, Nick, people are getting really, really upset at you because they think you're purposely turning this party hard left. And he said to me, they think that because that is what I'm doing. Do you know, what year was that?
Unauthorized recording.
I bet you that was right around the same time he did that with me. I did not know he said that to you and Aaron. He definitely said it to me, and I was the only one saying that I knew of that he said that. I am so glad. So that would have been December. Was that the same meeting, or November? Was that the same meeting where Richard had said he wanted to be secretary?
really supportive of protectionist trade policies or really hate.
Yeah, that sounds about
immigrants,
right.
although
Nick
there
said
are
that to
some
me
people like
before
that.
then.
I think a lot of it is just people who know things are on the wrong track and want to be mad and want things to change and don't precisely know how to do it other than to hold up a sign for...
Okay, gotcha, Justin. I was just so surprised that he said that to you guys as well. He definitely said that to me on the phone, and he's called me a liar since then.
This populist that's come along and has promised to fix things.
I want to kind of throw a couple ideas at you, because I've talked with people about this before. Why does this exist? And, there's people will have some psychological explanation sometime. One kind of extremist party is a link to another extremist party. And I know it's not the kindest thing to say libertarian is extremism, but it is, it's a more unusual set of views than the mainstream of politics in America. And maybe it's just that people who are attracted to one weird philosophy will also be attracted to a second weird philosophy. But that didn't seem right to me, because you don't see like a libertarian to Green Party pipeline the way that you sometimes see this libertarian to alt-right pipeline. One of the things that...
We're seeing a libertarian to ultra-progressive pipeline in JBH and Andy Craig right now. Are you high? Really? I'm asking you quite honestly. Are you taking the crocodile? You're taking the crocodile, aren't you? Aren't you, young man? Subversive, as you know, but other people in the chat may not know, or Justin, I don't know why I keep calling you by subversive with. Justin, and that phone call, I said to Nick, you know I'm going to oppose you, don't you? And he said, Miss Harlos, you are going to do whatever it is you think you need to do.
I've read that made the most sense to me comes from Sam Hammond at the Niskanen Center, which is libertarian-ish. Libertarian, maybe. I'm trying to get them, honestly, to just call themselves neoliberal at this point, but give me some time. But Sam Hammond wrote a piece about this kind of linkage, and his theory is that people who hate the state for one reason can be really easily convinced to hate the state for another reason. That kind of the similarity between libertarians and the alt-right.
You mean or libertarians and ANCOMs? You're self-refuting.
That they both view the state as illegitimate to some extent, but for different reasons.
No, alt-right does not view the state as illegitimate. Oh my God. They might view the current state as illegitimate because it's not enforcing, non-race mixing and all of that other stuff. But they think the very concept of a state is legitimate. They just don't think that this state is using its power properly. Whereas libertarians, at least anarchist ones, view the very idea of a state to be illegitimate. But Justin, yes, you are correct. When you operate within the counterculture, you attract those not just opposed to the culture, but rejected by it. Correct. You do. Any minority movements is going to attract its more than its share of loonies, including neoliberals. They're kind of a minority movement themselves.
Libertarians would have a more philosophical objection to high taxes and the non-aggression principle and things like that. And the alt-right simply views the state as illegitimate because it's not controlled by white men.
That's completely different.
And that
one is saying that the state is not behaving properly, and the other one says the state can't behave properly because the very idea of a state is illegitimate. He's conflating two entirely different meanings of the word illegitimate.
If you view the state as this illegitimate force, that it's easy to kind of transition from one reason of illegitimacy to another. So I'd love to...
Yeah, you could be correct, Daniel W. I might be defining neoliberal a little bit too narrowly, and I think you're probably more correct that Joe Biden and that kind of crowd, you might be correct.
Get your reaction to that, I guess. Just if you're familiar with that line of thinking or not. Do you think that there's any truth there?
I think there's something to that. I mean, to begin with, the first part of your question is it's true that there's a kind of marginal ideologies selection effect.
Okay, we're going to get into that whole fringe groups will attack fringe people at times that might not be completely on board with the fringe group. We're going to save that for part 3 because this has been an hour and a half. I think that's long enough rather than going 2 hours. We've got another 13 minutes. That will be part 3. Between part 2 and part 3, I'm going to finish listening to D.L. Cummings. And was it Tyler? There was someone else who did a refutation of this. I need to remember who that was. I saved it. Is it Tyler Jenke? Getting old. Plus, I'm out of alcohol, and you can't do this show with no alcohol. That is, that's my precondition, is copious amounts of alcohol. And I don't know why my headphones weren't charging. That was really bad. It was very hard for me to hear. It's coming out of this tiny Mac Mini speaker. Yonki? Y'all with your Worcester or Worcester. Is there still any Massachusetts people here? Is it Worcester? Worcester? I'm never going to get this right. Oh, but okay. That'll be it for today. I might record tonight chapter 1 for patrons only. My thoughts on chapter 1 of The Problem of Political Authority. By Michael Huemer, right? Is that correct? Yeah, I think, yeah. Loving it so far. He words things very well. I had it that time. Which time? I said it 4 different ways. Worcester. Is that right? Worcester? I don't know why I find this so funny. Anyway, y'all see how I have prominently displayed my racist trophy, apparently. All right, everyone. Well, I'm going to get going. I need to eat a bag of tuna fish. I know that was really random, but I'm giving plasma tomorrow, and I got to get my protein levels up. So I'll talk to you tomorrow, probably. I'm trying to think if there's any other shows or anything I have to do tomorrow. I don't think there is. But anyway, I hope you have an awesome night, and thank you so much for tuning in. Alrighty. Okay, I'm trying to find the buttons here. Here we go. Love you. Bye-bye.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.